when talking about, David's son who would rule after him, it says that, quote, his throne will be secure forever. Now, that would be an interesting thing, almost a confusing thing, I would think, to point out to the Israelite exiles, who probably see that it's physically not there anymore. Like, there's no throne, there's no palace, there's no king of theirs that is ruling. So, what do you mean his throne will be secure forever? What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Okay, so we got 1 Chronicles chapter 17, and let's see here. Context really is just that, well, first of all, the book of 1 Chronicles and 2 Chronicles after it, it's, if my understanding is right, written by a man named Ezra, who is essentially wanting to communicate with fellow Israelite exiles how they even got into this mess and what they should do moving forward to try and, get back in God's graces and, get back to actually having their own nation and land and all that kind of stuff. So it's been looking at King David lately, and really, even though it's been kind of revisiting all of that stuff, there's within basically every chapter, there's been some little thing you could look to and be like, aha, this is really important to God, because either something went really well or something didn't go so well, and it highlights the significance of a particular thing in God's eyes. Either way, whether good or bad end result, it stresses the importance of following God's commands and seeking Him and worshiping Him, and, basically all the stuff that they got away from before they were exiled from their homeland. So, we'll keep rolling with that idea, I suppose, probably here in 1 Chronicles 17. Here we go. When David was settled in his palace, he summoned Nathan the prophet. "Look," David said, "I am living in a beautiful cedar palace, but the Ark of the Lord's covenant is out there under a tent." Nathan replied to David, "Do whatever you have in mind, for God is with you." But that same night, God said to Nathan, "Go and tell my servant David, this is what the Lord has declared. You were not the one to build a house for me to live in. I have never lived in a house from the day I brought the Israelites out of Egypt until this very day. My home has always been a tent, moving from one place to another in a tabernacle. Yet no matter where I have gone with the Israelites, I have never once complained to Israel's leaders, the shepherds of my people. I have never asked them, 'Why haven't you built me a beautiful cedar house?' Now go and say to my servant David, 'This is what the Lord of Heaven's armies has declared. I took you from tending sheep in the pasture and selected you to be the leader of my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have destroyed all your enemies before your eyes. Now I will make your name as famous as anyone who has ever lived on the earth. And I will provide a homeland for my people Israel, planting them in a secure place where they will never be disturbed. Evil nations won't oppress them as they've done in the past, starting from the time I appointed judges to rule my people Israel, and I will defeat all your enemies. Furthermore, I declare that the Lord will build a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For when you die and join your ancestors, I will raise up one of your descendants, one of your sons, and I will make his kingdom strong. He is the one who will build a house, a temple for me, and I will secure his throne forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. I will never take my favor from him as I look sorry, I will never take my favor from him as I took it from the one who ruled before you. I will confirm him as king over my house and my kingdom for all time, and his throne will be secure forever. Okay, I was just trying to get that entire word from God to Nathan before I took a step back and added any thoughts to it. So, now David had, at this point at least, managed to move the Ark of the Covenant from just like a random remote place within Israel to the capital city of Jerusalem, which was very well fortified and easily defensible, much more so than the random place on the outskirts. So, he had gotten into a safer place, but it was just kind of in a tent. He had made a tent for it because it had been in a tent before, but really, at the start of this, David's all like, I have this beautiful place that I'm living in. It shouldn't, the Ark of the Lord get a big, beautiful, equally, if not more glorious looking place, because the Lord is more important than I am. That's David's heart. He wants to emphasize the glory of the Lord over, his own glory. But long story short, God tells Nathan that, he tells Nathan to tell David, I appreciate the idea, but no thanks. You are not going to be the one to do it. It will happen. Don't worry about that. In fact, one of your sons will be the one to build this temple for me, but not you. And it was definitely said previously back in, I guess it was maybe like 1st or 2nd Samuel, that he didn't want David to be the one to do it because of how much blood he already had on his hands. Not that David was fighting for bad reasons per se, but just because of that proximity to all that violence, because of all the time spent shedding blood, and really maybe just like the general lack of innocence in that way, and purity tied to that. That's probably the main sticking point, because of the lack of purity due to all that. God's like, no, you're not the one. I'm gonna have somebody else build it later. But meanwhile, in the midst of all this, he's reassuring David that, like, okay, you're not going to build this temple for me, but you are essentially going to have this amazing dynasty that will carry on. When talking about, David's son who would rule after him, it says that, quote, his throne will be secure forever. Now, that would be an interesting thing, almost a confusing thing, I would think, to point out to the Israelite exiles, who probably see that it's physically not there anymore. Like, there's no throne, there's no palace, there's no king of theirs that is ruling. So, what do you mean his throne will be secure forever? And I'm not going to get ahead of myself on that yet, because there's more of the chapter to read through that might say more about that. I do know, at least as of this point, that, like, the lineage is still there. Even if the physical throne is no longer occupied, there's still, at least in existence, someone of the royal bloodline continuing on. Certainly as of this writing. Okay, note right here. Hebrew says a house of cedar rather than a cedar palace, but it's the king's residence. It's kind of assumed it's a palace, even though the Hebrew just says house. And there's all sorts of details, although I think the really lavish, that might have been the word I was looking for earlier, the like really lavish palace, I'm not sure that was built until Solomon's time after David. So Nathan went back to David and told him everything the Lord had said in this vision. Then King David went in and sat before the Lord and prayed. Who am I, O Lord God, and what is my family that you have brought me this far? And now, O God, in addition to everything else, you speak of giving your servant a lasting dynasty. You speak as though I were someone very great, O Lord God. What more can I say to you about the way you have honored me? You know what your servant is really like. For the sake of your servant, O Lord, and according to your will, you have done all these great things and have made them known. O Lord, there is no one like you. We have never even heard of another God like you. What other nation on earth is like your people Israel? What other nation, O God, have you redeemed from slavery to be your own people? You made a great name for yourself when you redeemed your people from Egypt. You performed awesome miracles and drove out the nations that stood in their way. You chose Israel to be your very own people forever, and you, O Lord, became their God. And now, O Lord, I am your servant. Do as you have promised concerning me and my family. May it be a promise that will last forever. And may your name be established and honored forever, so that everyone will say, the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, is Israel's God. And may the house of your servant David continue before you forever. Oh my God, I have been bold enough to pray to you because you have revealed to your servant that you will build a house for him, a dynasty of kings. For you are God, O Lord, and you have promised these good things to your servant. And now it has pleased you to bless the house of your servant, so that it will continue forever before you. For when you grant a blessing, O Lord, it is an eternal blessing. Okay, and that's actually the end of the chapter. I kept things much more together in the reading because it was like not wanting to, break in the middle of what people were saying. So David basically comes back to God, and first off, it's almost as a direct response to, the part where God's all like, I took you from tending sheep in the pasture and selected you to be leader, and, all that. Those reminders from God of what he has done for David, how he has, helped David attain his position, get all this fame, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, and all this praise from the people. David, almost as a direct response to that, is like, yeah, you're right, you've done so much for me. How am I even worthy of all this? In previous books, when it was, in fact, like, really early on in David's kind of transitional period between being anointed and being, like, fully established as king, especially when he was helping King Saul, he really had a habit of being like, oh, thank you so much, who am I don't deserve this. Almost like he had, I don't want to say confidence issues per se, but like, he almost had a negative view of himself. So, could be a little bit of that coming out, but it's also, like, very, very humble how David is coming to God with all this. Because he knows where he came from, just a lowly shepherd. Okay, note from chat. As a captive, when all you saw around you was captivity, can you imagine reading about the stories of power about David, about your people being strong? Must have been like superheroes for us today and those as exile. For us today and those exiles. Yeah, I could imagine, like, yeah. So the exiles reading this, while it might have at one point made them wonder and scratch their heads a little bit about, what do you mean being secure forever? At the same time, they see, you know, how prosperous and, you know, successful that their people were when they had, you know, strong ties to the Lord, a strong devotion to the Lord. Now, of course, you know, establishing all of this sets the stage for probably later on in the recap, we'll call it, that'll show them, okay, yeah, it was great like this for a while when we were devoted to God, but then we did this. We fell away from God. We stopped worshiping Him. And that's where things went wrong. And there's been hints at that already throughout First Chronicles, especially when it was talking about Saul and why he was unseated. But, yeah. And I guess now, even in reading and hearing this, the exiles would have seen, you know, or noticed, I should say, that, you know, David's heart was humble. He was all about, you know, worshiping God and giving God the glory because of his humble beginnings. And that, again, that really, I would think, should have been the point of emphasis to them, is the connection to God. Yes, things were good, but it was because of that connection. And, you know, David goes on speaking about what God's done for him, praising him for all of that, and thanking him for just the great honor of promising this dynasty. Because if God was going to promise him a dynasty, that means God viewed him very highly. There are other places in the Bible where it describes David as a man after God's own heart. And it's because of this general kind of attitude. Poetically Christian says, and it showed them that David put the Lord first. He was concerned with housing the tabernacle and paying God the proper tribute. Yeah, again, the reason for him wanting to build a house / temple for the Ark of the Covenant was to give God the glory. It you know, seemed odd to him that he would have this, you know, lavish, glorious palace. Meanwhile, the Ark of the Covenant, really the primary symbol of their connection to God, who was really the most important facet of everything they had, you know, that was just in a tent. Like, no. Give God the big, lavish, glorious building. Put me in a tent if you gotta, but, like, I should not be giving the... I should not look like I am more important than God here. That's David's thinking in all this. Okay, there's a note here in verse 17. It just says the meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain. I guess in reference to being someone very great. But, you know, I would figure in context that's the general idea that he's going for anyway. It's like, you know, who am I? Yep, so I guess that'll do it for 1 Chronicles chapter 17. Okay, so basically we get another way that David emphasized his relationship with God and, like, centered his life around that. Even just, like, in the way he gave thanks to God and, you know, realizing what God has done for him, or recognizing, I should say, what God has done for him all throughout his time as king. So I would hope by this point, you know, multiple chapters into talking about David and how well things generally went, but also how much he emphasized, you know, focusing on God, obeying God, worshiping God. Hopefully, the exiles got the point that, yeah, that centering your life around God and making him your main focus is what helps things go well. That's when we as a people group, as a nation, we're the most prosperous. But obviously I can't speak with a whole lot of certainty on what they thought back then. That there might be some indications of that in later books of the Bible, though. But let me not get ahead of myself. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Make sure you look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff like that. And leave your comments down below there with any thoughts you have, or questions, or whatever. So that's going to do it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.